this was the first time we ever spoke. So
Yep.
I think that's pretty cool. It was just
Hmm.
immediately comfortable and enjoyable. So I appreciate it, man.
That's what I try to do. I try to make you nice and comfortable and then give you the D. All right. Hello, everybody. This is the D, and I am finding my camera here now. And as you can see, I've got a very special guest here, Mr. Gigs himself, JGigs, Gigsy. What do you like to be called?
Any of it's fine.
All
I'm down
right,
with
we'll
whatever.
call you Walter, and we're going to go from here. So,
Walter
Walter
it
has
is.
been. Walter's been producing content for several years now, right? Going on, what, 4 years? 3 years?
Yeah, about 4 years full time. Yeah.
Okay. Started with Raid or with.
So I started in the gaming space. I started with Summoner's War way
Okay.
back in the day, and then Raid dropped, and I sort of pivoted
Mm-hmm.
because I saw an opportunity for me to kind of get ahead of it, and I had some experience with mobile games through Summoner's War, so I kind of knew how to play and I knew how to make content for them. So
Mm-hmm.
tried to get ahead of the curve with Raid.
Okay. And then, as everybody has done here, they've jumped from Raid over to Watchers. And so,
Hmm.
you're doing Watcher content. I'm doing Watcher content. Everybody and their mother's doing Watcher content. And on their Raid channels, they're pitching Watchers of Realms. So
Yeah.
everybody's all about Watchers. For me, I ran a failing podcast for a while. Not failing, but it was kind of the equivalent of stand up playing small rooms, right? Like it was getting eyes, people were watching it. But overall, I was like, I think I'm going to pivot into something a little bit more specific. And I really liked this game and I liked your content. And so, like I told you, I was like, I'm going to try to free to play angle and go from there. Um, and that's been doing pretty well, built up a pretty good channel so far. And for everybody who is tuning in, that's about all the Watcher of Realms talk you're going to get for the rest of the day. Because Gigsy and I here are actually going to go ahead and talk about something that is passion of both of ours, and that is comedy or stand-up comedy or just the act of being a jester in and of itself, right? Um, and this is all based off of a video that you put out a week ago now, 10 days ago.
Yeah, somewhere definitely in the last 2 weeks for sure.
Yeah. And I'm paraphrasing because I've got a memory of a goldfish. If you've watched Half Baked, marijuana affects the memory. But
Marijuana affects the memory.
as we all know, it was in regarding stand-up comedy. And I think it was something about like, is stand-up comedy dying, or what was the title?
That was the gist of it. Yeah.
Okay.
Just kind of what's happening to stand up.
Yeah. Okay, that's right. Like stand-up comedy in general. And so I was really intrigued by that, and I reached out and I was like, "Hey, dude, I'd love to talk to you." And so, here we are. After watching it again, I liked where you brought up some points about the podcast universe. You brought up things about, stand-up comedy in the past and where stand-up comedy is today. So I definitely want to explore some of that. I will get into some negative things, but I don't want to just beat up stand-up comedy because obviously we enjoy it and there's good parts about it also, right?
Definitely. Oh, for
So
sure. Mostly good.
yeah, mostly good. I mean, it is a dickish business when you're in it. Like, everybody can be a giant dick at some point in time. Whether it's a high profile person coming in and bumping somebody else's set or just somebody using their power on a platform. We won't name anybody specifically, or, just maybe even Adam Sandler using his power on a movie set. They just eventually somebody gets a little dickish every now and again, and you
Yeah.
just hope you don't go full Louis C.K., right? Then you got to take a couple of years off. Take a little time off and pivot to a new business model. But what was your first experience with comedy? Was it like a movie, a tape?
So, from the like production side, I think the first thing I remember, the first stand-up special I think I remember actually watching was a Stephen Wright special, his 1985 special, I think it is. And I don't think I meant to watch it. I think it was a VHS tape, and I thought something else was recorded on it. So I put it in to go to bed one night, and it played like 4 minutes of the movie I thought I was watching. And then it cut to the stand-up special. Someone had recorded over something, and I was in bed. And I was like, I'm not getting up, so like I guess we're gonna see what this is about. And he did. I was younger. I don't remember how old I was, but I was younger. And I was intrigued by the intro. I had never seen anybody really do an intro. You know, the powdered water. He's in the house in the middle of the desert, and there's all these bits that he's turned into visuals. And then he comes out on stage, and I had no idea who he was. And it's just some of the most unique, still to this day, some of the most unique comedy I've ever seen. He's just an absolute genius.
His one-liners are amazing.
Yeah, it's just it's
I love
wild.
him so much. He has one bit about an art exhibit, which is just children's art on refrigerators, and I love that so much because having two small kids myself and some of the stuff they come up with, it's a perfect idea. Just finding that and using it for material is so genius. I love Stephen Wright as well. Big fan of him. I think one of my favorite jokes of his may not even have been an original of his, but it's used in Family Guy. And it's I spilled spot remover on my dog. Now he's gone.
Yeah.
And it's just it's just he would deliver it way better than me, but it's the pacing and the way he just like pauses at the end, like now he's gone.
Yeah, it's the unexpected turns and just the absurdity. He's got one about he was trying to get in his apartment and he accidentally put his car key in the door and turned it and drove his apartment around the block. Just around. Yeah, just real goofy stuff.
I love it. And that's as some would say, that's the comedy mind versus the civilian mind, right? They're just different people. They just think differently.
A comic's brain is so different than a pedestrian's brain, and like what like I can't help. I went
Pedestrian is so funny, by the way.
Oh,
like saying that.
But he was ahead of his time for sure. Him and Mitch Hedberg, gone too soon.
Man,
an escalator can never be broken; it can only temporarily become stairs.
It's a real shame he's not still around.
It is. I think he would have thrived, but I don't know where he would have gone outside of a stage.
Yeah, I don't know. I think about him. I feel like he would have had a podcast similar to the way Theo Von goes about doing it.
But it was so early. It was the early 2000s, late 90s. It wasn't. None of us had all this equipment. We weren't doing any of this stuff.
Yeah. I'm talking like more modern day. What he'd be doing now.
Yeah, let's say he had lived an extra 25 odd years, then yeah, I think Theo would be a good example of that, because Theo's definitely more podcast funny than he is stage funny, which actually was one of your points in the video, if I recall, where he's just so funny because and honestly I relate to him a little bit, which is selfish to say, but it's that I thrive in the chaos of just whatever's happening, right? Like I want to mix in the gumbo of what's going on and kind of come up with shit on the fly, like calling you Walter randomly. But he'll come up with just random stuff, like telling a story about how his kid friend got like beat up with a baseball bat because he was blind or something like that. Like he just comes up with these absolutely insane
you never
stories.
know if it's a true story or not.
You can never tell. That's the beauty of embellishing as a comedian, is if you do it right, nobody can weave the fantasy from the reality. And he does it so well. But But yeah, I think that would be a good place for where Mitch Hedberg would end up. For me, it wasn't a VHS. One of the first VHSs I found that had something recorded on it I didn't know was in a plastic bag, and it was called Butts Up. Very interesting video to find at 9 years old. But I remember watching Comedy Central a lot. Like it was always on for me. Whose Line Is It Anyway? All the Monty Python stuff, Benny Hill, Upright Citizens Brigade. So I was watching a lot of sketches and a lot of non-stand-up comedy in between all the other stand-up comedy. But then I'm listening to, like Adam Sandler CDs and the Jerky Boys prank calls and, all those good things that young teenage boys should be listening to on a regular basis, right? Like Piece of Shit Car. That's something
Right.
every young boy should listen to. Is it or two men working out? That's a totally normal thing to listen to at the teenage years. But then I was always the class clown too. So that's why I was curious about yourself. Did you ever get into a little trouble at school?
Not really. I was painfully introverted when I was younger. I was really quiet in school. I had a couple of moments here and there where I would get into a back and forth with the teacher, but for the most part, I was really, really quiet. When I was very young, I got in trouble a lot for talking. But as far as class clown, I was never really into that. I didn't really kind of bloom into being outward with it until I was well into my 20s. I was funny among my friends. I got told, everybody says when you're funny, you should be a stand-up comedian. And I'm like, that's a different kind of funny, but thank you.
Yeah. It's hard.
but
That's something I wanted to touch on too, but go ahead, continue.
But yeah, I was never much of a class clown. This didn't start until I was an adult.
Okay, so it had soaked in and gotten into your pores pretty good, and then you decided to come out of your shell a little bit and let your funny bone speak. That's good. For me, I was a terror. I was the kind of kid that my science teacher kicked me out of class for distracting the students during a quiz. I come back in and I still get a B+ on the quiz kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like, or rather she was teaching and then I came back and she did a pop quiz and I got a B+ on the shit I wasn't even in the room for. And she was just like, who even are you? It's like, I'm just bored, lady. I don't know what to tell you. And Spanish class, super disruptive there. So my teacher was like, listen, you can just draw or read a book. Just don't talk to anybody in class and I'll pass you. And I'm like, sweet, man. So
yeah, that's nice.
Yeah, got really intimate with tracing Dragon Ball Z characters and reading Ender's Game. That was a great Spanish class. And all I got out of it was Tu abuelo es una máquina de escribir, which is your grandfather is a typewriter. That's all the Spanish that I
mean, that's all you really need. So
that'll get you all the way down to Tijuana and back, and adventures in between. So you're absolutely
everything you
right.
need. Yeah.
Yeah. So for me, I was never actually nominated class clown, but always that extroverted, needed attention, didn't get enough attention from mommy and daddy and had to get it from everywhere else. So I'm taking my, remember those belts that were like Celtic knot belts that you could put
I used
anywhere?
to wear one all the time. Yeah.
Yeah. So I used to max that thing out and wave it around like a giant hog, just normal stuff. Just simple, normal things that boys do on a regular basis. But I still to this day, I've not been brave enough to go on stage. And I've actually encouraged a friend of mine to go on stage. We were in his car and he had his joke notebook out and he was actually like coming out to me that he had this dream. He wanted to be a stand-up comedian. And he was like, I'm afraid to fail. And I was like, dude, just do it and find out what happens. And 10 years later, he made a fantastic comedy troupe down in that beach town he was at. And he was nominated one of the best comics in the city.
That's awesome, man.
I was like, at least somebody achieved their dreams, because I don't know what I'm doing with my life. But so that actually leads me to one of the things I wanted to talk to you about, which is, being an open micer in stand-up. obviously your friends said that you should give it a shot. Did you ever give it a shot, or did you just go to making skit videos?
I never did stand up. I did used to go to a place when I was still in Memphis that would have open mics on Thursday evenings, and you could go in and do whatever you wanted to do, basically. So I would go in and do a lot of like Stephen Lynch, a couple of Bo Burnham songs, things of that nature. So I did that in open mic. And I think if I was ever going to try to do stage performance comedy, it would be more along the lines of what Stephen Lynch does. I think I would try to do a funny musical show. I mean, I reckon if I really wanted to get good at stand-up, I guess I would have to flex that muscle and work on it and maybe over time. But I don't think I naturally have a stage presence. I don't think that's where I really feel like I shine. I'm much better in my own space behind a camera doing the things that come to me. I feel a lot more comfortable in that element.
Is that from having the higher level of control, you think? Because on stage, you're kind of at the whim of the crowd.
Yeah, probably. It's a lot less vulnerable because I ultimately I have the final say, and on stage it's just different. You know what I mean? And I think some people just have a stage presence and some people don't, and I don't even think it's necessarily a negative. I think I just don't. I'm not a stage presence kind of guy. I'm not a captivating on-stage speaker, but I can get on a video and people seem to be interested in what I talk about. So.
Well, I mean, based on your follower counts, I would definitely agree with that, you know, and I mean, almost everybody that was on that 24-hour Fastidious stream that was a creator, or even in the chat, they were like, man, I love JGigs. JGigs was the first time that I got into this or that, and JGigs this, JGigs that. So you're well loved, my friend.
Yeah, it's really neat. I appreciate it.
And I wonder how much of that is just having too much charisma to want to get on stage and literally be the dancing monkey versus a more calculated charisma where you've got it, but you want to unleash it when you want to unleash it and not necessarily, 4 times a week going up to workshop material and just eating shit over and over again until you figure it out.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I would do well on stage. I think that's just my perception, I guess. But maybe that energy translates the same way on stage. Just in my head, I feel like you have to have some sort of command or like outward. There's just some element that I just, for most of my life, decided I didn't have, which could be a mistake because I think I spent a lot of my life thinking I wasn't creative. Until I decided to start letting myself try to be creative on YouTube, and here we are. So maybe I'm just wrong. Maybe I would be good at it.
You could be onto something, because my kid asked me the other day why I'm not very good at art, and I was like, well, I just never really gave it a shot. I never felt creative, but now I create digitally. I create memes. I create content. I create, spoken monologue stuff, video monologue stuff. And I realized that that's also a creative mind. That is, to use the word that Fastidious used and to fully explain Bo Burnham, which I'm glad you brought him up, it brings the auteur out in you in terms of you're the director, you're the writer, you're the producer, you're the editor, you're the one who's doing everything. You have ultimate control. And honestly, Bo is probably the main reason I got into this was after I saw Inside.
Yeah.
I had never been a Bo Burnham guy whatsoever. I saw Inside and it changed my life.
It's brilliant.
I'm glad you said that because it really is. It's even though it was done in COVID and it's very clearly a pandemic piece, it's timeless.
It's insane. So Bo Burnham, if I've never said it or if you don't know, he is my number one bio slide.
Me too.
I mean, since the moment I saw him, my cousin texted me years ago and said, do you have a special on Netflix? And I was like, what does that mean? Oh, nice,
it's backwards. And then I've got apathy's a tragedy and boredom is a crime.
Yeah, that's awesome. But he texted me and said, do you have a special on Netflix? And I was like, I don't know what that means. And he said, go watch this. And at the time, I had the long, shaggy hair. We're both 6'5". We're both thin. So at the time, I looked a lot like Bo Burnham, and I was like, wow, this dude does look like me. And I watched the special, and I just immediately was in love. He's just he's brilliant. I'm such a fan. So he is by far my number one favorite. I don't mention him necessarily when I talk about stand-up because I think he likes the distinction. He's not really a stand-up.
He's not a stand-up. He's Malcolm X and Weird Al Yankovic put together, right?
Yeah. I am just such a fan of everything that comes out of his mouth.
Yeah, this is pathetic to say, but I'm going to go ahead and say it anyway. I sing that album all the time. I will sing every track top to bottom. It used to be my commute album. Like, I could track my commute from start to finish. Okay, I'm going to end right at 30 and I finish it up with I'm turning 30. And then I get in the car and I get the crescendo at the end and I'm pulling into the house right when All Eyes on Me are coming on. And then he gave us the outtakes. Have you seen the outtakes?
Mm-hmm.
A whole nother hour.
It's basically a whole, wild.
And it's just as good.
Yeah.
Like Microwave Popcorn, 1985. Dude, I wish I could be anybody dead or alive. I wish I was a white guy in 1985. Like, I sent that to my dad because I was born in 1984. I was like, here you go, Pops. This one's for you. And he liked it. So I was like, all right, I know this is a good one. And but yeah, he inspired me so much to just be like, all right, screw it. Just do it. Just get in front of the camera, just be yourself, and if yourself doesn't work, be somebody else, right?
Be yourself. Okay? Because the landscape is so competitive. There are so many people with so many different skills. The only thing you really have to offer at the end of the day is yourself. So offer yourself by being yourself. And if that doesn't work, then be somebody else, because you may suck. Who you are on a fundamental, sort of unchangeable level may just be uninteresting and unwatchable and useless. So if you're that, be somebody else for sure. And then if that doesn't work, then go like this.
So that actually, I am so glad that I didn't know that about you, because that was like, he skyrocketed, because I love musical comedy. I will parody anything. I love King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard. Have you heard of them?
I'm not super familiar, but I've heard of it.
Okay, so you're not from Australia. For those who don't know, you're currently in Australia.
Right.
The band King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard is from Australia. They've got a song called Flamethrower, and I'll get my leaf blower out and I'll be out in the backyard like, leaf blower, leaf blower. And I'm just, going around blowing my leaves. It's, I'll just be singing randomly in my kitchen. And my kids will be like, what are you doing? And I'm like, I'm just having a great day. Is that a problem? So it gets a little old, but I don't know about you. I have no musical talent. I just have the ability to write funny things. So my idea is I'm going to have my kid learn piano, and then we'll go from there, and I'll just exploit her musical talent, and we'll go from there. But in all seriousness, do you have any musical talent to possibly go that angle?
Yeah, I play guitar. I've been playing guitar since like 2006. I've got some experience with the piano.
I forgot about
I can carry a couple beats on the drums.
Yeah, and you can rap too, right? I forgot all about that.
Apparently, I can rap. So.
Oh my god, no shit. Of course you have musical talent. What I fucking spaced on that, dude. So you could do it. So now let's explore that. So have you written anything that you've done to completion outside of like one of those? What was it, DJ RNG?
Yeah. Not really. I've dabbled a little bit, and I would like to. That might be one of the things I try to give more energy this year. But I have not, which is interesting because, like I said, I'm such a big Stephen Lynch fan. Every time he drops a new album, I learn the album start to finish because I just enjoy having that so much. So maybe I should give that some more energy as well. I have to get a guitar. I haven't had a guitar since I came to Australia, but.
Well, it is always good to either avoid being the guy with the guitar at the party or actually being good with the guitar at the party. So you do have that. Have you ever heard of Tom Cardy? Also Australian.
No.
Okay. So he is also musical comedy. It's got a great song called "Have You Checked Your Butthole." Absolutely love that song. He did another one for D&D called "Perception Check." Beauty of a song. So I definitely recommend checking those out as well. They're like TikTok size, minute and a half, 2.5 minute long songs. But yeah, Tom Cardy is who that is. But I would encourage you to do it, because you definitely, for those who haven't seen your skits, they're hilarious. And you've done 2 or 3 of them within this week in terms of the Plarium Twitter employees, which are just absolutely hilarious. I swear to God, when you threw that real monsters line out, I fucking died, dude. I lost it. It was over. I never thought I would hear a reference to that for the rest of my life. And here comes Gigsy with, did y'all see the All Real Monsters collab? You also, I will say this, you also have that ability to let your joke sit there and mellow out in the silence and just let the audience do with it what they will. I think Greed should be able to ride Apsan, because Apsan is a horse and he should count as a platform. You just let that one sit there afterwards too. And I'm not going to lie, I clipped that one and I put it in an episode of mine that I used. Cause
really?
I loved that moment so much. Cause I was just like, I need an Apsan. And then I remembered your joke and I was like, oh yeah, this dude could be extra use.
I mean, Greed will sit on somebody's shoulders, dude. He didn't care. Absent should count as a platform because someone could ride him like a horse. You know what I mean? That's really fun to hear, because sometimes I just say stuff that I don't even clock. I just say it and forget it. And then someone will DM me or leave a comment about this thing that I said that tickled them. I'm like, man, I don't even remember saying it. It's so weird.
Yeah, and that's the great part about some of this stuff, right? Is you kind of like put it out there, and then the audience does with it what they will, right? The different portions of it are going to touch them in the different ways. And that's what's so great about comedy, is that there's so much truth in it. But also so much of that fun and so much of that exploration of, the absurdity of very serious ideas. Which is why it's so crazy that it is getting worse. And I really do feel like, and this was one of the points that you had made, was that everybody being so omnipresent on the internet, whether it be on their socials or whether it be on doing all of their friends' podcasts, or, actually having shows and specials on Netflix and what have you, it seems like there's no distance from them to actually be able to have any confusion as to who they are and what may come up when they come up on stage. So I think that was your primary point through the video, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, pretty much. That, and it's like, you never miss them. Like, Tom Segura drops a new special. I can finish watching his podcast and then go watch the special. There's no build-up or anticipation. Like, man, I'm really excited for this new special. It's like, it'll get here when it gets here. And in the meantime, I can watch him every day. He's on you know what I mean? So, whereas again, someone like Louis, who you really don't hear much from until he drops a special, it's much different. His comedy is still, top notch for me. I don't think there's many people, maybe any, that do it better than him, in my opinion. And that might be because I don't see him that much. I don't know. I don't really know why, but
it helps a lot, in my opinion. And it feels like it really started with COVID, when we just got, all these podcasts came out. Everybody has 2 or 3. I mean, even Bill Burr, he's got one with Paul Verzi. He did one with Bert Kreischer for a little while. He does Thursdays sometimes, and sometimes he'll have guests and other comedians on. I almost like the guests better, like Dan Soder, for instance. He's one that I don't see a lot of. But every time I do hear his impressions, I feel like, seeing his act would be really fun. And so I try to stay away from overexposing myself to him as a result of that. And I'm trying to think of something I've seen live. Mark Norman, one of your favorites. I got to see him at the Comedy Zone here where I live, and absolute killer of a set.
Yeah.
I don't know if any of the jokes were used in the special that you are so fond of, but I've yet to watch it. So when I do go back and watch it, I'll try and, jog the old memory banks. But again, there's a certain leaf that affects the memory quite a bit. But I don't watch his podcast that much. I'll occasionally watch Protect Our Parks because I like when Shane and him are funny and Ari and Joe kind of just eat shit. And then outside of that, hadn't really heard much. So I died for the whole set. Just 40 minutes of absolute side bursting laughter.
Yeah. I'll say the only time I've ever seen him and not felt like that was this special. Every other time I've ever seen him, he's hilarious. Maybe I was in the wrong mood that day. You know what I mean? You'll have to let me know what you think about it when you watch it, but it just did not do it for me.
Yeah, I'll definitely give it a shot probably here in the next couple days, just because I have been going back and watching some specials as a result of, getting ready to have this conversation with you. Watch Dave Chappelle's most recent special. Have you seen that one yet?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Laughed quite a bit. Really liked the closer. Liked the idea of being in someone else's dream. I thought that bit was absolutely gold.
Mm-hmm.
Then I watched Shane Gillis' special. The most recent one. What is it?
Can't remember the name.
Yeah, I can't either. So sorry, Shane.
I know which one it is, though.
Popular enough already anyway. But Shane's most recent special on Netflix, I think my laughs per minute were way more.
I don't think I stopped laughing that whole special.
It's difficult. It's really difficult. And Shane's another one. I try to stay away from his podcast because I really like his comedy, so I like to be surprised.
Same.
But he's got one piece of podcasting with Louis about the presidents of the United States. Craziest 6 hours that I've ever wasted in my entire life. It's like,
I need to go watch that. I've only seen the clip where Louis is giving him a hard time about the Patreon episode.
Mm-hmm.
Have you seen that? I've only seen that bit. I haven't seen the whole thing yet.
It's actually worth it because it's some of the better podcasting content that's out there in terms of just the actual like raw ability of Shane to pull out all this historical knowledge, but still be absolutely hilarious at the same time.
Yeah.
It's incredible. It's incredible. And Louis also extremely knowledgeable about American politics and our presidents. And so the two of them going at it, Matt barely says anything in this episode, and he's usually helping Shane, carry a lot of the weight. But I want to circle back to the whole thing about, the oversaturation and whatnot. I had mentioned before we started recording about seeing Bill Burr's special at Red Rocks and listening to Bill Burr on his podcast. And essentially what happened was I could tell that Bill had been workshopping his jokes on the podcast. And I was wondering if there were any other specials you've seen recently of somebody that you watch on the regular that kind of happened. Because the only other person I can think of would be Tim Dillon.
Yeah, I'm weirdly not as familiar. I've seen a lot of YouTube clips of Tim Dillon, but I'm not as familiar. I think he's funny. I don't think I've watched a special or anything yet. And I don't know that I can think of any examples of that because I've been kind of off the comedy podcast scene for a little bit. I used to watch several of them start to finish regularly. I haven't done that in a long time. I catch clips here and there, but I don't know if I'm as plugged in as I would need to be able to recall anything like that recently.
I don't blame you. Our attention spans are decreasing by the second every day. So, that does happen. But they're also not as interesting anymore, honestly. Because
I kind of felt like that. Maybe I feel like I just kind of fell away. I didn't need to see him every day. I know what Tom and Bert are doing at this point. You know what I mean? I don't care.
Well, especially
anymore.
when they're banking up episodes and that they're not even recent current events. Whereas when I was doing my podcast and Chris Rock got the shit slapped out of him, I had that episode out and ready at South Park speed. I was like, this thing's got to go. And I got to get it out now. I got to hit the algorithms. And it worked. Like, fire of an episode. Nice. Unfortunately, Chris had to get treated like a little baby by an even bigger baby. But I was very spoiled in the past 2 years. I mean, I have seen more stand-up comedy live than in many recent years. Being out where you are, how long have you been in Australia now?
Almost 2 years now.
Almost 2 years. So have you been able to see any live comedy?
I haven't. That's one of the things I plan to do soon is start seeing if there are any clubs around that might have some things for me to go see.
So you might want to look at Shane's tours, because I think he's actually coming to Australia. It's either Shane or Theo. But of course, Theon's a little bit... Theo, not Theon. He's not from Game of Thrones. Theon Greyjoy, the comedian. But Theo, I think it's either him or Shane is on their way out there. But I think in the past 2 years, I saw Chris Rock pre-slap. So that was interesting. Like, working the same material that year, pre-slap, versus the special that came out with the material that I saw. Like, he tried a couple of jokes. I think one of them was the joke, actually, that he used in his most recent special. Those are more likely to stick with you. And then saw that one in his actual special. But then I've seen Tim Dillon, which was another one of those cases where I got to see him live. And I was like, okay, I've seen where you've workshopped some things on your podcast. And I think that that's where things are getting a little bad too, is that they've got all these viewers on the podcast. They've got these huge fan bases, but then they get up on stage and some of them just are not getting laughs and things are falling short. And at the same time, I think we have a double-edged problem where I know you said that there was an open mic where you were. Here where I am, there's at least 7 or 8 comedy clubs, very few open mics. And I don't know what exactly is causing that, but that's a big barrier to entry to get people to be able to get reps and get into it. And that was actually one of the things where I want to try. I would like to get up and try. It's just, I literally would have to drive 3 hours away to where my friend does comedy, because I'm more likely to actually get up because I know someone versus not knowing anybody at all. But then you run into the problem of not being able to write very well and telling a good story, but not being able to finish it with a good punchline. And there's no real point to get on stage anyway. Because sometimes those could be the punchline, right? Like, you just finish up with a random tangent and leave it, and people will either laugh or they won't. And that's where I'm kind of with you. I'm going off on tangents, is just that I don't know if I could get up there and do it, because I feel like I'm not going to be able to write punchy punchlines. I may just get up there and ramble, as I'm clearly prone to doing. And, I'm scared for my life.
It's a really intimidating thing. Like, especially with your own material. It was scary for me the first couple times that I did the open mics, and I wasn't even doing my own stuff. I was just covering other people's stuff. But it is true that first time you do it, that first step, it immediately starts getting easier.
That's what I've heard.
It's worth it, ultimately. I think it'll, even if it doesn't go well, at least then. You know what I mean? You won't be 10 years from now and you're going, man, I think I probably could have done well. But I don't know.
It's been about 10 years, so that's where I'm at right now. So you're on the, you hit the nail on the head.
And if you drive 3 hours away, then you won't even run the risk of running into anybody ever again.
Well, I mean, that was an old haunt of mine that I vanished from like a ghost, because everybody was getting into some stuff that I was not a fan of. So I said, see you later. Even ghosted a relationship. So that town is kind of dead to me. But it has a comedy scene in it that I would like to be in. It's just a matter of getting down there. Plus, it's a beach, so there's plenty to do. There's, my friends there. And actually, that's another thing that I'm thinking of. He has a joke, and I'm not going to say it because it's his joke, but the premise here is what I want to get at. This joke I think is very funny. He's done it on stage and it performed very well. But now the times have changed a little bit. He did that joke about 8 years ago, and he's very uncomfortable with doing that joke. And I think that uncomfortableness with doing that particular joke has led some other people to not be as brave when they're on stage as well. So how do you feel about that?
Yeah, it's real tricky. You have to be a lot more careful now than you used to. But I think ultimately, in the same vein, if you are funny, if the goal is to genuinely be funny, I think you can get away with a lot more. And I don't even like the terminology "get away with," because I think if you're genuinely trying to be funny, you're not trying to get away with it. You're not because you're not trying to be mean. You're not using a joke as an excuse to be hateful or spew your ridiculous opinions. You're genuinely trying to be funny. So if you accidentally step over the line, testing it out, that's the only way you can really know. So I guess that's just about introspection. I think if you really believe you're just trying to be funny, give it a go. You know what I mean? Like, and I think people have a lot more patience for that because people can just tell. People can tell when you're, if you get up and you're being hateful and then you have to go, it's just a joke. Well, then you've already fucked up. So.
Yeah, that's like my 4-year-old who will come in and just tell me a straight up lie. And when I check her on it, she's like, I'm just joking, Dad. Yeah. I'm like, no, bro, that's not a joke.
It's not a joke.
It's not a joke. You're just lying.
Like spitting in somebody's face and they're like, it's just a prank. That's not how pranks work, man.
Just a
prank. It's
not an
excuse to do whatever you want.
Dude, I feel so bad because I was in that camp, right? Like I was that class clown who would have gotten there if TikTok was a thing. Like I feel very terrible that I know that's in there. Like we used to drive around in 8 cars and just be shitheads, right? Like terrible moment. The worst moment, the one that got me to stop actually. Rolled down the window. We're driving by a McDonald's. There's like a big bush line that covers the whole thing, and there's a phone booth there. And I just hurled this egg at the phone booth. Didn't know anybody's in there. And then all of a sudden you hear a woman scream, and I'm like, oh, shit. That's hilarious.
It's just a prank.
Just a prank, bro. Sorry. But yeah, I never walked up to somebody and like kissed the back of their head or anything like that. I'm not trying to get killed. And I think that's a big problem too, is people think that shit's funny. And when the joke is explicitly at the expense of the other person, it's no longer a joke and you're just being rude. And there are a few people who are out there either to like pretend they got canceled and boost popularity that way, or like literally trying to get canceled by just being mean as shit. And it's like, I agree with you. I agree with you 100% that genuine nature of delivering the joke, if it's actually funny, people are going to laugh. And I think you made this example, but Shane is definitely a prime example of that.
Yeah.
So Shane Gillis will toe that line. He'll tiptoe over it and along it. And then sometimes even get offended on others' behalf, I've seen. So he's very genuine in what he jokes about and how he makes it funny.
And he's not hateful, and that's the big thing. You watch his last special, there's a few times where you're like, but it's also funny. So it's like, so all right, then you pass. Then you're clear.
Yeah. Like I said, it's at first it's that lady screaming and you're like, ooh. But then you're like, oh, that's pretty fucking funny. That's pretty funny. Yeah, it's I wanted to do better because after COVID, one of the big things I wanted to do was make $1 million selling GameStop shares and open up a comedy club. And neither of those things happened. But the core idea was because I felt like people needed to laugh. I felt like coming into 2022 and now, 2024, people had seen so much, suffered through so much. I was like, people are really, really going to need to laugh. And I think there was a big comedy boom for those 2 years. But now it's really started. The dust is settled. Everything is calming down. Things are going back to normal. And it's becoming very clear that there are some people who need to just go back to the old way of just living life and workshopping material on stage versus getting all the ad revenue and whatnot.
Yeah. If that's their goal, you know, I'm not even mad at these guys for
Oh yeah, get that
just
bag.
do what's easier and more successful. Fine, but it's noticeable. There's a noticeable difference in the quality of the specials we're getting the last couple of years. So if that's
you
the
gotta
trade-off,
keep reminding people you sell out arenas and how big your stuff is. Yeah. You know, nobody asks Seinfeld how many cars he has. They just know he's got a shitload of cars.
right?
You know. Speaking of which, how do you feel about him? I grew up with him. I loved Seinfeld. You didn't really mention him, I don't think, in the video. But he's kind of one of the GOATs.
For sure, he definitely deserves to be in that conversation, just for what he's accomplished, and I think he's funny. I enjoy him. He's not on my list of favorites, but he's definitely funny. He's definitely a unique kind of funny, and some people dig it and some people don't. Obviously his sitcom is also one of the GOATs. So to have accomplished what he accomplished in two different lanes, he certainly deserves that acknowledgement. And I enjoy him. I'm always happy to watch him. But
he broke out too on the internet with comedians in cars getting coffee.
Yeah, I actually really liked that show as well.
Oh, yeah. I got, that was when I was really into my I want to do stand-up comedy phase. I had just watched Donald Glover go from doing Derek comedy to Community to becoming Childish Gambino and becoming a rapper, and then going on to write Atlanta and do all these things. And that show brought a lot of the thought process to light in terms of, you know, the way these comedians farm for their jokes and the types of ways that they write their notes. I'm like, oh man, that's the same way that I write my jokes. I'll write a little bit and then flesh it out afterwards. Or, you know, the joke title might be something stupid, like just a 3-word phrase on a, you know, imager or something like that. It's the same kind of thing. You know, like Fluffy Bear Surprise, and you never know what that's going to be. It could be anything. But yeah, Seinfeld for me, that was my original Office. So that's like, I could throw that on, and that's, you know, the background music. And, but he's definitely a polarizing figure in terms of people either really like him or they're just kind of like, yeah, he's all right.
Yeah.
And I get it. I've seen him live, which was definitely good. That was probably 5 or 6 years ago. And we've got a golf course here that plays one of the championships every now and again for the PGA. And so he's telling a joke about how you can't really whisper that, or you have to whisper on the golf course. And he actually told a joke that was about black people, but he did it in such a way that he was like when you're around black people. Nobody laughed. I cackled so hard that I know for a fact he had to know and see me. And I just felt equal parts terrible, but also like, that's a really good joke. Like, come on now, that's right. But you have those moments where you're like, is anybody else going to laugh at this? I find this funny. Oh, man. Well, I don't really know where to go from here. We've explored quite a bit. I don't know if there's really any point to this other than just that there's a lot of things to still explore in comedy. There's a lot of people who hopefully get a chance to be funny. You know, Lily Tomlinson just got a show. People are already shitting on it for some reason, and only one episode's been released. You know,
it's almost certainly because she's a woman.
I think it's just hate. I think it's just haters first.
I mean,
you know,
yeah.
The player
Women
haters
have a harder time in comedy, especially, for sure.
Yeah, 100%. But she's definitely one of the good ones. She's out there. You know, she was working the clips. She was gathering her following and building her brand in the new way that you would, without plastering herself all over every podcast of the universe. So, you know, it is still possible to get up without having to do all that.
For sure, yeah.
But any parting thoughts you want to go with? Because I certainly don't want to keep you all day. You've been pleasant enough to give me almost an hour here already, and I appreciate it quite a bit.
It's all good, man. What are your... If you could be doing anything you wanted to do on your YouTube channel, what would it be?
Entertaining people, really, and just making them laugh. I mean, that's almost the entirety of what I do. That's why I'll read Admiral Claw's character sheet and change Bladestorm Annihilator to Bonestorm Annihilator, and then put up a Simpsons clip from Bonestorm, the video game that came out. I want to inject little bits of my personality, little bits of my pop culture references into things. But overall, what I would love to do, I would love to be doing sketch comedy. I would like to be writing sketches with a group of people. I've tried multiple times to get live friends together to do it. A few really talented people, like voice actors, people who write very, very funny lines on a regular basis. And they're all too introverted. They don't want to get in front of the camera. They don't want to even get behind the microphone. And I'm like, you're killing me because you're so funny. And actually, one of the guys, my original podcast was called Getting the D, because everything I do has to be laced with innuendo. And he sang the theme song for me. He just brought his guitar over and just riffed a song. We recorded it out here in the studio, and then my other friend got here and we just went ham. Like, I've got stuff recorded that if it saw the light of day, it would probably be really good. Like, people would laugh hard at it, but they don't want it to come out. And
yeah, that's frustrating.
You got to respect the people you work with, right? And I'm just hoping that one day they'll see it. But I would like to ultimately get to coming up with just funny things. Like I did that Tim Dillon rant on Raid Shadow Legends back in the day when ChatGPT was a huge thing, cloned his voice and had GPT write a script, and then I cleaned it up a little bit, and then I gave it back to it, and I was like, make it sound like Tim Dillon wrote it, and then and then just made him say it. That one I thought was great. So I'd like to do more stuff like that. I like to make music videos. Honestly, I enjoy that a lot as well. And then as far as like for my Watcher of Realms people, I put out a poll earlier about, gameplay videos. You guys like the gameplay videos? Because I don't know about you, but it's getting a little bit harder to show my progression every day in terms of like, my daily play is mostly just farming now. So do you really want to watch me farm for a little while, or would you rather me be silly and talk about the heroes kits and whatnot? So, I've just been looking at my analytics, looking at, what people like and where the spikes are, and just trying to give them more of that. And just, like I said, just being myself. And if myself doesn't work, then I'll try to be somebody else. And if that doesn't work, then I'm just fundamentally a bad person, and I'll have to be, I'll have to just figure that out, But in all honesty, man, if you ever want to brainstorm anything, I am always open to help with a line, or, you want to be like, hey, let's parody this song. The most recent one I did was a parody of Sky Full of Stars, where we were brainstorming an idea of French fry drone delivery, and it was a drone full of fries. And I wrote a little ditty about that. So I'm definitely all in to help you with some musical comedy. Okay. Always down to talk comedy with you, or really anything else, man, because you're a pleasure. You're a gem. You are like
that, man.
One of the good ones.
Likewise. I appreciate that.
Well, I'm just a guy out here trying to be cute. And if one or two people find that enjoyable, then that's all that I need, Oh
yeah.
All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, lords and ladies, you all have been treated to whatever this was. I hope you get whatever you get out of it. If you've not been a big fan of comedy, maybe you'll look into some of the things that we talked about. Maybe you'll think about some of the things we talked about. If you got any recommendations, I'm sure we both would love to hear them. And, any final words there, Gigs?
No, man, I appreciate you having me. This was fun. It's always fun to link up. And this was the first time we ever spoke. So
Yep.
I think that's pretty cool. It was just immediately comfortable and enjoyable. So I appreciate it, man.
That's what I try to do. I try to make you nice and comfortable and then give you the D. I think I said that on one of my videos. I was like, it might not be enjoyable for you. It might not be enjoyable for me, but somewhere, some way, somebody's going to get some satisfaction out of it. And with that, I appreciate your time. I appreciate you, working with me and talking with me again, because it was our first time. And I am glad that it went so well. And if you ever want to do it again, I'm open to it. And to everybody else, thanks for coming out and watching the D. You have a great day.